Greetings and welcome to the Ryder Report. I'm Ryder Bullock. We begin tonight with basketball, the NBA in Indianapolis, where Andrew Nembhard was fantastic. 28 points, 12 assists. That's a real game. That's a real point guard performance. And the Pacers, yeah, they're 6-18. I know the record, don't call me, but they've actually won 4 of 6. There, dare I say it, playing competent basketball. And if you know the Pacers, last year they were below 500 at Christmas. This is about where they were. They were a little better, obviously, last year than this year, and most of that's because of injuries. But Christmas last year, this is about where they were, under 500. Then they had that undefeated January. Not saying that that's going to happen this year, but before we put the Pacers in a box and kind of write them off, just remember this is a team that tends to surge late, and people are getting healthy. Andrew Nembhard's back. You know, Tyrese Halliburton's still down, but Neesmith's coming back. Toppin will be back as well. Benedict Mathurin, 25-9. Pascal Siakam, 23. And the Pacers controlled this game for 3 quarters. Then, of course, because they're the Pacers, they blow the whole thing open and let Sacramento right back in it. And look, Westbrook, I mean, what do you do with him? What do you want me to say? Another triple-double, 24 points, 14 assists, 13 rebounds. He's got 207 of them. I don't care who you are. That's absurd. But the Kings do what the Kings do. They made a run. They took the lead and then immediately gave it back. Nembhard hit a 3. Mathurin hit a 3. Nembhard hit another 3, and that was the game. Kings go home. Pacers get to feel good about themselves for 48 hours. In Minnesota, the Suns walk in there and say, oh yeah, remember last time we stole one from you? They do it again, but this time without the drama. Mark Williams, 22-7. Colin Gillespie, he had 19. Dylan Brooks with 18, probably talking the whole time because that's what he does. But the story of the night is Anthony Edwards. He dropped 40 like it's a casual Monday night. The Wolves supporting cast was hideous. Naz Reid, 2 for 12. McDaniels and DiVincenzo, 1 for 7 each. You can't win like that unless Anthony Edwards scores 75. And then Gobert, he gets tossed. And listen, Gobert gets ejected more than he hits free throws at this point. Suns open the fourth with a 14-3 run. They take control. Minnesota claws back, but can't hit the game-tying 3. And that is the ball game. And finally, New Orleans. This game was ridiculous. Spurs were up 20 at halftime. They're ringing in threes left and right. They looked like the 2014 Spurs for really the first half. Then the third quarter happened, and the Pelicans scored 45 points. I'm sorry, I don't care who's hurt, who's missing. You give up 45 in a quarter, you should have to apologize to your fan base individually. Derek Queen, the rookie, 33 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. That's a rookie. 29 of those in the second half. I mean, come on. And yet the Pelicans, they still lose. Why? Because the Spurs actually closed the game like adults. Dylan Harper hits a floater with 9 seconds left. Fox hits free throws. Spurs hold on after a desperation heave. Oh, and none of their stars played. No Wemby, no Zion. Didn't matter. It still looked like an all-star game played by teenagers. Pelicans have now lost 7 straight, and honestly, you feel like they might lose 7 more after that performance. All right, enough of that. Let's move to the NFL because Week 14 was, frankly, a circus. We start Thursday night, Cowboys-Lions. Listen, you want offense, you got offense. Neither team pretended defense was part of the sport. Jamar Gibbs, 3 touchdowns. The kid is unbelievable. The Lions won a shootout because Gibbs basically said, don't worry, I'll do everything. Dallas, they had nice numbers, but didn't get a win, so same old story. Sunday was injury ward, and I'm telling you right now, I cannot remember a week where this many starting quarterbacks exited early. Daniel Jones, Indianapolis, Achilles, first quarter out. They lose to Jacksonville. The Colts season is teetering. Jaden Daniels, Washington, elbow injury, third quarter, and they get shut out by Minnesota. If you're wondering how it's going in Washington, that's how it's going. Meanwhile, Atlanta and the Seahawks treated the Falcons like a preseason opponent. Didn't let them in the end zone, never competitive. Seattle looked like they were running a practice script. Miami handled the Jets easily, barely worth discussing. The Jets' offense is, it's unwatchable at this point. Titans and Browns, the Titans won by the skin of their teeth, and the Saints absolutely stunned Tampa Bay. No one saw that coming. The Bucs sleepwalked through the entire afternoon. Buffalo playing in the snow, big defensive plays, big comebacks on the Bengals. That fourth quarter, defense looked like vintage Bills. They needed that one. And Pittsburgh, they now stand alone atop the AFC North. Close win over Baltimore. The Steelers don't make anything easy, but they get the job done. Then in the late window, the Broncos swept the Raiders. Let me repeat that. Denver sweeps the Raiders. That's probably ruined half of Las Vegas's mood for the week. But with that loss, Vegas now has the number one draft pick if the season were to hold. Rams blow out the Cardinals. Not competitive. McVay had that one circled. And then the Packers and the Bears battle for first place. Ends with a Caleb Williams interception in the end zone. Caleb Williams, young quarterback. Division stakes, Lambeau noise, it was too much. Green Bay seals it. Kansas City might not make the playoffs because they lost again. They fall to 6-7. Texas's defense, it's number one in the league. They completely shut down Mahomes. And like I said, the Chiefs fall to 6-7. And that's their worst record through 13 games since 2012. This isn't a slump. This is a crisis. And listen, I don't want to hear about the receivers. I don't want to hear about the injuries. You're the Kansas City Chiefs. 6-7 is unacceptable. And then Monday night, it was sloppy. It was a marathon. It was a slog. It was Monsters Incorporated. And a game really that felt like it would never end. The Chargers beat the Eagles in overtime late into the night. The Los Angeles fans find just enough offense to get out there with a win. And with that, we bring in our NFL enthusiast, Albert Lanier. You can catch him on the Wise Guys Show, streaming exclusively on YouTube. Albert, we made it to week 14.
Yes, week 14 and still alive. Yeah. At least some teams are still alive, right? The Kansas City Chiefs, I don't really know. I used to call the Kansas City Chiefs the NFL version of what they used to call the Cincinnati Reds, the Big Red Machine. And after what happened to them with the Houston Texans, I'm calling them the Big Dead Machine because it's not looking good for the Chiefs. The playmakers aren't making the plays. Some of them did, but enough of them didn't. And it's very clear that Denver's going to win that division. Obviously, Broncos aren't going to win anything. They'll be fortunate if they win enough cab fare or bus fare or train fare or whatever kind of fare to get home.
Yeah.
Get to their individual hotels, wherever they're staying, or homes. But yeah, I think the Chiefs, like I said, they were the Big Red Machine in the NFL, and now they're the Big Dead Machine in the NFL. Another team that's looking like it's on life support right now is the Indianapolis Colts.
Yep.
They lost not only to the Jaguars, but they also lost Daniel Jones,
yep,
who was a major reason for the success of that team. I don't think he was the reason, but he was a major reason for that team. And I think he knew. If you watch that game and you watch how he reacted.
The smashing of the helmet and all that stuff. Yeah.
He knew it was over. And that That's really, really tough for a player like that when he's been on teams where you haven't had success,
Yeah.
or you've had brief success, and you finally get to a team where you have success, and now you're gone, and he's out with a torn Achilles. I would say panic mode is in full. It's DEFCON 1 for the Indianapolis Colts.
Absolutely.
I said prior they got to focus on getting 10 wins, and at this point they got to focus on getting any wins.
Yeah.
You know, they're in big trouble. And the Jaguars are not a great team. They're not. They're what I call them a good bad team.
Yeah.
They're a bad team that's actually got a good record, and they're playing well this year. They're very suspect. Anybody who saw that Texan game will know. And even getting beat up by the Rams. I mean, granted, the Rams are a superior team, but even seeing them against the Texans when they had a 19-point lead and seeing that fizzle away. And they almost, no one's really bringing this out, they almost really blew that game with the Cardinals. The Cardinals just self-destructed at the end in the sense that they didn't do the timeout or spike the ball. They don't think they had a timeout. They spiked the ball and stopped the clock. So I don't think the Jaguars are a good team. Again, they're a good bad team. And you had, so in this 14th week, of course you had, and I've said this all throughout the season, every week there's a great game.
Yep.
At least one great game. This week, that great game was Bengals-Bills.
Okay.
Played in Buffalo.
In the snow.
I like to call those games the Winter Wonderland games. Those are always hard games to do, very hard games to play. And this was a great contest, fantastic. Easily another great game. I mean, the Bills have played some terrific games this year. You know, people have their doubts about the Bills, but when the Bills can play, they're really unstoppable. Even if it's a close game, they're really unstoppable. And the Bills' defense finally stepped up and made some plays.
Yeah.
And I think they were the reason they won this game. The back-to-back turnovers. That's what the Bills' defense needs to do if they're not only going to go to the playoffs, but going to have any success in the playoffs. They've got to make plays like that. And, of course, that game was what I call a PGID playoff game in December.
Yeah.
And it had all the intensity, all the passion, all the feeling of a playoff game. I mean, it was intense. And the one thing I say about Cincinnati is Joe Burrow seems to be the essence of that team. When he's not there, that team can play offensively fairly well, but defensively not. That defense came alive last week. I've never seen the defense play so well. There's something about that team. When Joe is in that QB1 position, they can win. And not only if they don't win, they can believe they can win. So I don't think Cincinnati's going anywhere this year. But they're going to win some games. You got to look out for them if they're on your schedule. So long as Joe is healthy and he's able to play. And he does play. And I would also say, and then you also have to look at the Steelers and the Ravens. To me, now granted I'm biased a little because I'm a Steeler fan. This has always been the rivalry. And you had a couple rivalries playing this week. And I'll get to the other one before we move on. The Steelers-Ravens, to me, is the rivalry of the NFL.
Yeah.
Nothing comes close.
Yeah.
These teams hate each other with a passion. Even I don't like the Ravens. I don't. And I've said this to others, and I'll say it here. Just speaking from a fan perspective, not as an analyst, from a fan perspective, the Ravens are the only team that I want to see Pittsburgh beat. I don't care if they lose to any other team. That team I want them to beat.
Yeah.
Every year. Because they usually play them twice every year. That's the team I want them to be every year. And so all these reports of the Steelers are crap, and Aaron Rodgers is past his prime and should retire, and fire Mike Tomlin. If you saw Mike Tomlin on the sidelines, he was going like this.
Yeah.
You know, because the Steelers pulled out pulled out a win against the Ravens, and ended it defensively, which I think is instructive. And one of the things I try to tell people about the Steelers, you have to understand this year that they're a team that can bounce back. They have a bad game, they can have a good game. They just need to put together some wins like they did at the beginning of the year if they're going to have any chance for success getting to the playoffs. The final rivalry was the Bears-Packers, which is supposedly the oldest rivalry in the NFL. And if you look at that game, I hear people say, well, the Packers owned the Bears. No, the Packers barely beat the Bears.
Yeah.
The Bears were making a comeback, and the defense stepped up and got an interception at the end. And that's what I think is a little different about this Packers team. The defense can make plays at the end to help them win games in a way I think that they didn't have last year or maybe in the previous season. So that's the interesting thing about the Packers. I don't think this Packers team is great. I think they're just playing at the level that they normally do. You know, they can go and they can win games. They can rattle off wins. And that's not unusual. But if you look at this Packers team, I still think they're suspect. And if they get into the playoffs, even if they win the division and get to the playoffs, I really don't see them advancing too far. I don't think that they can match the Rams, and I don't think they can match the Seahawks. I just don't think they can. I really don't. Okay. As for the Bears, again, they came close. I mean, I think you still have to look out for this Bears team.
Yeah.
I think they have to just continue winning, and if they get to the playoffs, it'll be a victory for this team. I don't know how far they're going to go if they make it to the playoffs, but I can tell you maybe it's better for them not to be the number one seed now.
Okay.
Maybe it's better for them to get to the playoffs as a wild card team and then think, oh, well, the Bears are passing, and we can beat this team. We can deal with them. I think maybe that's a better place to be for them than at the top and everyone being like, oh, what are we going to do against Chicago?
Yeah.
So, and that's my assessment, my broad assessment of week.
Okay. Let's get into my questions. I'm going to focus on the AFC South first. More specifically, the Houston Texans. One wonders as the season rounds its final turn whether the Houston Texans, once left for dead after an 0-3 start, might now be the team nobody wants to play. They have Arizona and Las Vegas looming. Then they travel to visit to Los Angeles, where Justin Herbert has spent much of the year dodging relentless pressure and pressuring quarterbacks. That's one of the things Houston does best. So if Houston were to win out, they finish 12-5, well in a season full of unlikely storylines. This might be the most remarkable one of all. Can Houston run the table and win out?
Can they? Yes. Will they? We'll have to see.
Okay.
It's still undetermined. The thing about Houston is their defense is playing lights out. Their defense is great. I mean, I would say look at the game with the Bills. That defense was terrific. I would also say look at the game overall with the Texans when Davis Mills, the backup, was playing with them against the Jaguars. I'd say look at those two games. I don't think they're the same with C.J. Stroud. I really don't think I think bringing him back, I don't know if that was such a great move. They've been able to win. I think they've been able to win because of the defense. I don't think, that's the thing that I noticed about the Texans. With Davis Mills in as the starter, that offense just seemed to respond, and that offense just seemed to be able to move down the field and to work effectively in a way that they weren't with C.J. Stroud. I think the problem is he's a guy who's prone to making interceptions. He's a guy that has gotten worse over the years. He had a great rookie season, and I think he's gotten more and more middling. He's gotten middling and more middling as he moves down his NFL career. So that defense has just done stalwart work right now. Like I said, they had a great game against the Bills, and they did a good job against the Jaguars. I can tell you right now, the Jaguars win the division. They go. If the Texans were to go, if they get the Jaguars, I don't think the Jaguars are going to win.
Okay.
I'll tell you that right now. Whether they can run out the table again is still undetermined. I don't see they've played well, but again, this was a close game against the Chiefs.
Right.
That they won. Yeah, I understand. It was a close game. And the Chiefs are not really a good team. They're a mediocre team that can play well at times. They're a middling team. Nobody in the professional sports media world wants to say this for some reason. But, they just want to say the dynasty is over. Well, I was saying on social media, the collapse of the Chiefs occurred really earlier with the Super Bowl against the Eagles.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And this team has just been a disaster since that Super Bowl. And, the reality is with the Texans just don't have the kind of offense that I think they can win. I don't think they can get to the Super Bowl. They just can't. So it's hard to say whether they can. They have a really good defense, but so does Cleveland.
Right.
And look at their record.
Yeah.
The defense alone is not going to do it for you. That's why the Texans don't win in the playoffs. They win a game and then they get beaten because you have a team with a better offense and a defense that can make stops. You're going to stop it. And C.J. Stroud simply not the quarterback he was in his rookie season. So right now, I hate to say it, but I think they'd be better off with Davis Mills than C.J. Stroud.
Wow.
I really do. He just something seemed to click when he was in there. Something seemed to click with that team. And they don't have a great offense, but they seem to click. They were able to win games. But, I don't know. They're winning thus far, but this is a Texans team that's just not reliable.
Yeah.
Not reliable.
Okay. Want to head up north to Indianapolis, where Daniel Jones, the Achilles injury, casts a long shadow over both the present and the future. In short term, it places the Colts squarely behind the 8-ball in a division they were very much alive in. God, it was really theirs to lose. And now we hand the offense to rookie Riley Leonard, who faces a baptism by fire. Long term, the picture is no clearer. Jones was approaching free agency. The Colts were expected to explore a reunion. But a lengthy rehab, does he play next year? Maybe not. We don't know. So that looms some questions. How does Daniel Jones's injury impact the Colts now?
I said before, I believe on the show, certainly I've said this online, on X and elsewhere, probably even on my own show. I've said I believe that the indispensable player on the Colts is Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
So with Jonathan Taylor still there, you got a chance to now make it to the playoffs and, contend. The problem right now is it was a good tandem. You had Daniel Jones, and he was playing well,
right,
and you had Jonathan Taylor, who's running very well this year. Now that tandem's off. So what you need is other elements of the Colts to step up. The defense needs to step up. They've got to find a way to stop teams. You got to slow them down. You got to get 3 and outs. You've got to be able to get turnovers. This defense is going to have to step up now because you have Riley Leonard. I think he was with Notre Dame previously. And so whenever you have, I guess, a rookie and also a backup, you don't know what you're going to get.
Right.
So what your team has to do is create an environment in which this rookie, this backup, can at least be productive. And if you don't do that, he's not going to be productive. Quarterbacks just can't win games on the strength of talent alone. Even Andrew Luck, and this is one of the reasons why Andrew Luck ended up retiring, a lot of the onus was on him. He's very talented, but you can't carry the team when you're the QB1.
Right.
You got to have an offense. You got to have a defense. You got to have special teams. You got to have a team that's willing to create and have an environment and have created an environment through which you can do your job and others can do theirs. And right now, that's what's going to have to happen with the Indianapolis Colts. They got to win games. It's no longer just get to 10 wins, as I mentioned before. That's done now. Yeah. Yes, you have to get to 10 wins, but you've got to win, period.
Right.
As Al Davis of the Raiders used to say, just win, baby.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do. You've just got to win. I think the defense of the Colts, they've got to step up. And I think if there's a way to get some special teams play, maybe good run backs on punt returns, you've got to find a way to take the edge off, to get the pressure off of Leonard. You've got to do that, because if you just rely on him, he can only do what he can do, and that's it. You're talking about coming into a system. The quarterback has a certain way of doing things. You have a certain offensive system geared around a quarterback. That's normally the way it is in teams, from what I understand, where the quarterback has gotten used to that system. Now you got a new quarterback. He has to get used to it in play, meaning he has to be able to perform knowing the plays and being able to get the plays off to receivers and running backs even. And so I think you have the other parts of that Colts team have to step up, but they got to win games. You're at DEFCON 1 already. There's just no other way. I think if this team doesn't make the playoffs, this is going to be a cautionary tale for years to come in the NFL. It's going to be this is going to be a real. I think it's going to be a real disappointment.
Yeah.
Obviously for the Indianapolis Colts fans, but I think within the AFC.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a huge letdown, and it's a wide open year. The Chiefs look like they're not going to make the playoffs.
Right.
They're certainly not going to win the division. If the Chiefs don't make the playoffs, it's wide open for the first time in years in the AFC. That means any team can win. Any team can win. I don't know that that's the case in the NFC. If the Eagles look like they're going to make it to the playoffs, so it's still, you have to deal with the Super Bowl champs, who are basically, as far as I'm concerned, a bad good team.
Okay.
That's the reverse of the good bad team.
Yeah.
They're a good team, but I think they're fundamentally bad, even though they're still good, still very good in terms of their record. They're a bad good team because they've got numerous problems, and not just internal issues, but they've got just an offense that's good in one game and not so good in the other. So the NFC, I think, is a different story. But in the Colts case, defense has to step up. You got to get some production in the special teams, like maybe some good punt returns to get better field position. And you got to step it up. If you depend on this rookie to do everything for you, you will be disappointed.
Riley Leonard, the quarterback from Notre Dame, who played in last year's national championship, fell short to Ohio State. This year's Notre Dame team behind C.J. Carr went 10-2, lost to two teams in the playoff, but didn't make the playoff. Anyway, that's another story.
We'll see
Anyway,
if that irony for that
yeah,
what happens to that team happens to this
yeah,
Colts team in the
yeah,
NFL.
maybe it might. Uh, let's shift gears to the Minnesota Vikings. JJ McCarthy put on a show yesterday. But the victory really didn't do much. They still have less than a 1% chance of reaching the postseason. A loss yesterday probably would have sealed their fate. Yesterday's win, though, merely delays the inevitable and probably nudges them down the draft board. But all in all, it was a great win for the Vikings. How good was it?
It was a good win for the Vikings, but it means ultimately nothing
Yeah.
in the span of win-loss records and playoff contention, and in the season itself. It really means absolutely nothing. Um, it means that McCarthy's capable of winning games, and he's won a couple, and he won a couple here. There's something about the Vikings. The Vikings, something about that team that's off. They had an excellent record last year, and they had a really great season. They were about the closest to a complete team
Yeah.
that I saw last year, and they just collapsed. Now, granted, they had Sam Darnold as QB1 last year, and he just seemed to fold along with the rest of the team. I don't think it was just Sam Darnold; it was just the rest of the team. And it didn't help, I think, that the Rams surged last year and came up, got into the playoffs. So I look at this Vikings team. They really haven't been able to establish enough consistency. There have been occasional flashes of excellence, but those flashes aren't going to get them anywhere if it's not consistent. Consistency is always the key in the NFL. So if you're not consistent, then you will lose in a persistent manner. And that's one of the big factors for the Vikings. They can't really put it together. They have a good win here, and then a terrible loss there, and then another pretty good win here, and then a horrible loss there. It's always up and down for the Vikings. This season, I think, is a wash. They're not going anywhere. At best, they can try to do what Miami's doing, and that is just win as many games and, try to look semi-decent before the season ends. But they're not even on the level of Miami. Miami's playing well. And that's a team that all of a sudden woke up and they started winning games. And they're looking like a team that could easily be in the playoffs, even though they probably won't be. But the reality is the Vikings don't look like a team that are going to be in the playoffs, even with this win.
Yeah.
I think they're sadly going to have to start looking at that QB position. I don't know about the draft next year, but they're going to have to look at that QB position because there's not enough with McCarthy playing to indicate that he can carry that team long term.
Okay. Let's shift to Green Bay, and their quarterback position is not in question. Jordan Love is their quarterback, and rightfully so. He has authored 7 touchdown passes, 4 on Thanksgiving in Detroit, 3 more following Sunday, propelling the Packers into first place in the NFC North. His deep ball has grown not only confident but commanding, 40-plus yard touchdowns in back-to-back weeks, the kind of throws that change games and seasons. His numbers over 3,000 yards, 22 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions. Where is he in your MVP conversation?
He's nowhere in my MVP conversation because if you look at the Packers, one of the reasons they've been successful is their defense.
Yeah.
Their defense has helped them win games. Look at this game this past Sunday or yesterday with the Bears. Who won the game for Green Bay?
Yeah.
Was it their offense? Their offense put up enough points. It's their defense. Defense got an interception at the very end. So what's happening with Green Bay right now is their defense they brought in Micah Parsons, and they've made enough of an investment with their defense, with their players, that the defense is helping them win games or ensure wins. You saw that with Micah Parsons sacking Jameis Winston in their win over the Giants. That defense is the backup. So that's very important when it comes to the Packers. Jordan Love's having a good year this year, but he's always been a rather good but not great quarterback.
Yeah.
Skilled, talented, but he's never going to be top tier. He could have a top tier year, and he's having a good year. What's going on with him now is they're allowing him to throw deep. And so they're getting success because he's going midfield, deep ball, and he's hitting his receivers. He's torching the backfields of some of these teams. And then Green Bay's decided, okay, we're just going to go with the long pass. We're going to go with the deep pass. And it's gotten results for them. But the reality is that offense started getting stymied in the second half. And the Bears came close to pulling off a win. And so I think Jordan Love's had a good year. He's not the MVP of this team, though.
Okay.
I hate to say it.
Yeah.
Micah Parsons is close to being the MVP of this team.
Okay.
And I don't think he's had the kind of year. He's had a good year, but I don't think he's had the kind of years that he's had in Dallas thus far. But he certainly had a good year. But he's been crucial. Yeah. Again, he helped them win that game against the Giants. He doesn't go in and sack Winston, they may not win that game. So, and if that player doesn't get that interception in the end zone yesterday against the Bears, I don't think they win that game. I don't think they do.
Okay. There's a team that is happy to hear those answers, and I think that's the Los Angeles Rams, because there are some offensive playmakers on that team as well. Matthew Stafford, still slinging with veteran precision, now leads the league with 7 games of 3 or more touchdown passes. But in recent weeks, the ground game has been a game changer for Los Angeles. Kyren Williams, Blake Crom have carved out lanes that simply weren't there earlier in the year. 117 rushing yards before first contact last week, an astounding 162 this week, and more than 200 yards combined. That's 530 yards of total offense on Sunday. What is the best part of the Rams' offense?
It's funny that you bring up the rushing attack of what I mean is the running back, the RBs of the Rams, because in this game, in this recent Rams game against the Cardinals, that's who I was paying attention to.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't see Puka Nacua. Obviously I saw their receptions, Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and their receptions. But I was paying attention to Corum, and I was paying attention to Williams. So it's interesting you bring up this question, because I've kind of paid a little attention to the running attack of the Rams. And I thought Corum had a good game, a really good game on Sunday. And I just thought, wow, this running attack is pretty good with the Rams. And it's going to be interesting if they they're going to get to the playoffs. I don't see any way they can't make it to the playoffs. But once they get to the playoffs, it's going to be interesting to see how well that this running attack will be able to be used against other teams, and whether McVay will decide to go with let's say, half a run-oriented offense as opposed to passing. Because everyone's talked about Stafford with his touchdowns and until the Carolina Panthers game, the lack of interceptions.
Yeah.
So we've been hearing about the air game, but not about the ground game. And what I've gotten a little interested in is the ground game. I'm going with Corum. Corum's a good player. You got Williams. He's a good player. I think this may be, I don't want to say a hidden weapon, but I think this is kind of an unexpected weapon with the Rams. If the Rams manage to go run the table and make it to the Super Bowl, I think that running part of their offense might be a big reason. I think this is kind of a hidden gem. I don't think it's so hidden, obviously, with the running backs. How could you hide?
Right.
But I think it's kind of a slightly hidden part of it. Everyone's focusing on Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, and Stafford. They're not focusing on Williams. They're not focusing on
Right.
Corum. But I'm focusing on them. I'm going, no, these guys are getting some nice rushes. These guys are picking up some yardage, getting first downs. This running attack's pretty good. So when they get to the playoffs, I'm going to be interested in how the running game is used. Again, I think the aerial game is going to be important. But I think the Rams may unleash that running game as their secret weapon, or not so secret weapon. That's the impression that I get. I may be wrong, though, because I'm looking at these two guys. I'm saying these guys are doing a good job. If they do what I think the Chicago Bears did against the Eagles, if they get to the postseason and they are able to do what the Bears did to the Eagles, I think teams are going to be in big trouble.
Steelers, did the Steelers win the North?
I think that they have a very good chance of winning the North.
Okay.
I think it's still hard because the Steelers at this point have been seesaw. They were successful early on, putting together some wins, and then had some losses. So it's been really a good win followed by a tough loss. Last week was a terrible loss. So I'd say they have a good chance to win. It's still very uncertain because even though I think the Ravens are a bad team that have managed to, I think, to give them credit, come up and win some games. Of course, they had an easier schedule than the Steelers did. I don't. It's still going to be tricky.
Okay.
It's still going to be tricky. There's no guarantee. So I think the Steelers have a better chance now than they did before.
Okay.
But it's still uncertain.
Okay. How glad are you that there's not an NFL playoff committee?
I would say I'm absolutely overjoyed that there's no NFL playoff committee.
Okay.
Well, certainly there's no need to because you have a playoff structure.
Right.
You don't have a playoff system like in college football, which, I used to hear for years, why doesn't college football have a playoff? Why don't they have a playoff? And they finally get a playoff.
And it's the same nonsense.
The same shenanigans and BS.
Yeah.
But college, I don't want to get into college football because I'll start. Oh, my goodness gracious.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like, it's weird in college football. But I'm glad. I'm glad the NFL, they're a pro team, they're a pro league, and they have a playoff structure. It works.
Yeah.
It's like any other, professional league. Yeah. College football is this Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Okay. Very well. Just your Frankenstein monster, the Wise Guys show. Where do we go to listen to it?
Well, as I guess Dr. Frankenstein, who's created the Wise Guys show, Frankenstein's monster, you can listen to the Wise Guys show, or even view me as the host of the Wise Guys show at Ryder Albert Lanier 3434 on YouTube. That's Ryder Albert Lanier. So you can go to Ryder Albert Lanier on YouTube and check out the Wise Guys show.
Okay. Sounds good. We always look forward to hearing your insights and looking forward to Week 15 next week. He's Albert Lanier. Always a pleasure to talk with him. From the NFL to college football, the 12-team field is set. It starts December 19th. On ESPN, the 4 teams receiving byes are Indiana after they defeated Ohio State in the Big Ten Championship. Ohio State is number 2 after their loss to Indiana. They fall 1. Georgia is third, winner of the SEC after they dismantled Alabama. And number 4 is Texas Tech, the Big 12 champion, after they defeated BYU. Number 5 is Oregon. 6 is Ole Miss. 7 is A&M. 8 is Oklahoma. All that stayed the same from the previous rankings the week before. And then this is where it gets sticky. Number 9 is Alabama. Okay. Number 10 is Miami. Number 11 is the American champion Tulane. And number 12 is the Sun Belt champion James Madison. I'm okay with the majority of that. But let me tell you, the committee missed this one. They flat out missed it. Notre Dame should be in the college football playoff, and it isn't complicated. Notre Dame was ahead of Miami all season long. Okay? And I get head-to-head has to matter. I understand that. Okay. And I understand that. But Alabama losing the SEC championship. BYU lost the Big 12 championship and was penalized. They were dropped. They were eliminated. They fell in the rankings. Alabama lost in the SEC championship and they stayed the same. And the committee chairman goes on there and he says, because BYU lost, that proves that Alabama and Miami are better than Notre Dame. You cannot spend 3 months telling the country the Irish are better positioned than those two, only to flip the script on Selection Sunday because of what? Vibes? Politics? Helmet logos? Please explain this to me. And don't forget the win nobody wants to talk about. Notre Dame beat Boise State. Boise State won the Mountain West. And that was one of Notre Dame's best wins. If that's not worthy of boosting a resume, then what are we even doing here? You can't prop up conference champions on one hand and then ignore it when it helps Notre Dame. Then you look at the SEC, you look at Alabama. I mean, come on. Alabama loses by 3 touchdowns in the SEC title game. Looks awful doing it. And we reward them. They stayed at 9 after that performance and still got in as an at-large. Last year they were left out. This year they get the benefit of the doubt. Convenient, right? And Miami, I have no problem with Miami being in. I had Miami in. They're a good team. They beat Notre Dame in the beginning of the season. Okay, but they didn't play this weekend. Okay, and they leaped Notre Dame. So now, not playing is a resume booster. Since when? Meanwhile, Indiana gets the number 1 seed, deserved by the way. Georgia avenges a loss. Ohio State sits at 2. All that makes sense. Okay, Tulane and James Madison get in as conference champs. Also fine. That's the system. But the last at-large spot, that's where it gets sloppy. Notre Dame is 10-2, has been consistently ranked higher, owns a win over a conference champion, and somehow becomes the first team out, while Alabama and Miami get pats on the back from the committee. You want to talk about fairness, you want to talk about consistency, you want to talk about accountability. This was not it. But hey, that's just one view. A lot of people are going to say Alabama is one of the best teams, that Miami deserves a shot, and the Irish had their chance. Fine, make your case. But if we're talking about criteria and the 12 best teams, if the criteria is to get the 12 best teams in, I think we missed it here. Okay, resume, rankings, eye test, consistency, conference titles mattering. Then Notre Dame got short here. It's that simple. I mean, what the committee really proved was the conference championships don't matter. If you want to fix the college football playoff, you want to clean up this mess we saw this year, you start with one thing: you get rid of conference championship games. They don't matter anymore. Not in a 12-team playoff. Not when an at-large bid carries this much weight. Not when losing in one of those games can tank a resume while not playing at all becomes competitive advantage. Look at this year. One team loses in a championship game and gets punished, BYU. Another team sits at home, doesn't even touch the field, and gets rewarded. I mean, Oregon didn't play in the Big 12 champion or Big 10 championship, and they get the 5th seed, which they deserve, by the way. But just bear with me. And now they get to they get to play a home game against James Madison, where they're favored by 21.5 points. That should be. I mean, that's the smartest way to go. I'm going to be the 3rd place Big 10, 3rd place SEC team. I'm playing for 3rd. That's what the committee's telling you. The committee says play for 3rd, get the 5th spot so you can play the game at home. You get a home game, and you're going to play the winner of the Sun Belt, or winner of the American, or Rice, or Navy, or North Texas, or insert mid-major team here. That's awful. That is awful. I mean, conference title games were created for competitiveness. Now it's just TV money. It's not fairness. That's the truth. They made sense when 2 teams were fighting for one national championship slot and you needed a tiebreaker. That era is gone. Now these games create more problems than they solve. 12 teams, teams play 12 games, sometimes 13, run through a loaded schedule. And then the entire season hinges on one extra game that half the country didn't even need to play. Meanwhile, the committee goes out of its way to say best resume, best teams, win your conference. And then they use these championship games in whatever way suits the narrative they want. You want a clean resume, you want a fair playoff, you want consistency, then stop making teams play an extra elimination game while everyone else gets to sit back and cherry pick the outcome. Eliminate conference championships. Seed teams based on the full season, every game, every week, all the way through. No more 1 week chaos deciding who gets in and who gets left out. People will push back. Some fans, love going to Atlanta every year, but they'll get over it. Some conferences need the paycheck. That's fine. Let them argue that one. But if you're serious about fixing the system, that's the move. And then you got idiots. I mean, absolute idiots. Like Paul Feinbaum and Dave Portnoy, who say the committee got it right, or BYU should have got in, or whatever. Honestly, if you wanted 12 best teams, if the goal is the 12 best teams, Duke beat the 11th best team in the nation in Virginia, or 17th best team, excuse me, in Virginia. They weren't ranked. They're 8-5, but conference championships matter, right? Put them in. They at least won their conference. So, anyway. But Paul Feinbaum here, this irks me. He talks about Notre Dame. He talks about Notre Dame not being a fan base and they're costing NBC money and all that lies. He lies. He goes on the air every day and lies to his viewers. He has a show. Listen, this idiot has a show because he's too incompetent to do anything else. He wanted to run for Congress, but he lies. And so his constituents, his voters, know that he lies, and so he can't win an election. So he stays on the SEC network and pumps lies out. He says Notre Dame's resume wasn't strong enough. Well, they're 10-2. They got wins against USC, NC State, Boise State. Okay. Then they have high-scoring blowouts. They beat Syracuse 70-7, Arkansas 56-13, Purdue 56-30. Paul Feinbaum said Notre Dame had little to show, really. 10 wins, including a top 25 USC and a bunch of dominant blowouts. Plus Pitt. Pitt was ranked when they beat them. Boise State went on to win the Mountain West. Okay. So, wrong again, Paul. Number 2. Paul Feinbaum said independence hurts Notre Dame. Notre Dame played 12 games without a conference championship, but their best quality opponents and were competitive in every game. You don't see Notre Dame playing Bethune-Cookman. You don't see Notre Dame playing Citadel. Okay? It's all FBS. There's no FCS. It's SEC. It's Big Ten. It's ACC. Come on, Paul. What else you got? You blame them for being independent. Well, Notre Dame's scheduling strength is on par with anybody. I mean, ACC, Big Ten, come on. I mean, Indiana, I hate to say it, Indiana played Old Dominion, and I get Indiana State, but still, there you go. Now look, okay, I get head-to-head has to matter, okay? The head-to-head loss to Miami is clear and fair. Notre Dame lost week 1, 27-24 in a close game, okay? Miami's win is the most defensible reason for them being out of the CFP over Notre Dame. But here's the thing. Miami went on to lose to Louisville and SMU. Meanwhile, Alabama also lost to Florida State. Come on. So, the reason Miami jumped Notre Dame is simple. Notre Dame lost head-to-head matchup. End of story. I get that. But that shouldn't have mattered today or Sunday. That shouldn't have happened on Sunday. Do that in week 10 when the rankings first come out. Don't come out there all marchy and say, well, BYU lost and that proves that Miami's better here. And what? I'm sorry. Everything you say is hot air. Close games prove competitiveness. They lost by Miami. They lost to Miami by 3. Lost to A&M by 1. Every other game was blowouts, including a 70-7 rout of Syracuse 49-20 over Stanford. Notre Dame wasn't outplayed. They lost 2 razor-thin games to 2 teams who were in the playoff, then dominated everyone else. That's elite football. Not crying on the playground. So Notre Dame, they are not playing in a bowl game. There's a big press conference tomorrow, and I have my thoughts on it. I support Notre Dame not playing in a bowl game, and they're not throwing a tantrum. Paul Feinbaum, this idiot again, says Notre Dame is taking their ball home like a 5-year-old. Nope, that's smart leadership, protecting players and the program's prestige. Notre Dame isn't throwing a tantrum. They're making a pragmatic decision for players' health and optics. Okay? So Feinbaum's playground analogy is insulting and ignores the business side of college football. Maybe if he'd wake up, he would know that. So Paul Feinbaum says Notre Dame had little to show and acted like crybabies. Let's be real. 10-2. Wins over USC, Boise State, blowouts against Syracuse and Arkansas, plus razor-thin losses to 2 teams in the playoff, Miami and A&M. Independence didn't sink them. The system quirks did. Skipping a bowl isn't tantrum behavior, it's strategic. So Paul, please, don't save your reputation and check your facts next time before you call grown adults a playground joke, because right now you're a joke and your show's a joke. And that's why nobody watches you. That's why I text all these people, SEC diehard fans. I go, how do you watch this Paul Feinbaum? And every one of them said, I haven't seen him in years. I didn't even know he was still on the air. I don't. He's an idiot. And I thank you. I'm glad there's some common sense people out there who watch football and get and are competent to watch football. Meanwhile, Heisman Trophy candidates are out. Jeremiah Love, running back from Notre Dame. Wouldn't that be interesting, real quick? Wouldn't that be interesting if Jeremiah Love wins the Heisman and we're going to say he's the best player in college football and his team didn't make the playoff? Wouldn't that just be crazy? So he's in. Of course, Diego Pavia from Vanderbilt, the quarterback, had a phenomenal season for him. Julian Sayin, quarterback from Ohio State, and Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback from Indiana. Not going to tell you who I voted for, but I will say this: I'm happy with all four finalists, and any one of those four deserve it, and they've all had phenomenal seasons, nonetheless. There. So let's move on. Here is tonight's final thought. There are figures in sports television whose presence lingers long after the highlight reel ends. Stuart Scott was one of those rare voices. And now, as V Week reminds us of the urgency of cancer research, ESPN's upcoming 30 for 30 on Wednesday offers something more than a profile. It offers a portrait of a man whose impact stretched far beyond the studio lights. Scott didn't just anchor SportsCenter, he reimagined it. At a time when sports broadcasting often spoke in one tone, one rhythm, one language, he dared to bring his own. His style was authentic. He was cool before cool became a branding exercise. He spoke to fans who had never heard themselves reflected in the nightly highlights. He opened doors for broadcasters who didn't yet know they had permission to walk through them. But Stewart's legacy isn't defined solely by catchphrases. It's rooted in courage. When cancer entered his life, he refused to let it mute his voice or break his spirit. His words at the 2014 ESPYs, "You beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and the manner in which you live," became a declaration not just of survival, but of purpose. He lived those words fully, openly, relentlessly. In watching this new documentary, we're reminded that Stuart Scott changed the business, yes, but he also changed the people in it. He made the colleagues braver, made audiences broader, made an industry more honest about who it serves and who it can be. As V Week continues, his story serves as both inspiration and instruction. Fight hard, live loud, love big. And remember that the most enduring legacies aren't written in ratings or resumes. They're written in lives touched, barriers broken, and truths spoken with grace. Stuart Scott did all that and more. Till next time, thank you for your time, and thank you for letting me share mine.